the big story that we want to cover today is just the story of the second delay that RJ sent out via text only email. And I'm just going to kind of ask you guys your initial reactions. This came out about 5 days ago at this point. So we've had plenty of time to let it sink in. We've been able to sleep on it. We've been able to see what people are saying in the forums. There's a lot of time it's been in the oven now. It's not just our first reaction that day. You can take us back to that day if you want, or you can just start now. What do you guys got for how you're feeling and some of the top takeaways?
I think for me, I think we, at least Nikki and I think we saw it coming. And talking to you guys, even the fact that there's still just so much information that we haven't gotten yet, and we're still 11 days or 12 days at that point, I think, left maybe in the month. But it just seemed it was too quiet post the last update that we got. We were running on 3 weeks of no information, and it just felt inevitable that we were going to be getting some kind of bad news. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think for me, I'd rather have something that's, you talked about the oven analogy earlier. I'd rather have something that's completely baked than not.
Than doughy.
Exactly.
Yeah, as I transitioned over to you, Skylar, just to kind of hit the high point so that this isn't buried too late into this actual episode, the big news was a delay from July for the R1T to September begins deliveries, the R1S in the fall, kind of even more open than it was before. And as we know from many people, Mafro has told us many times, remember, the fall ends December 21st. So it's a pretty big window that they opened up for the R1S. So that's kind of the details there. He did give some reasons why, which we'll get into, but I'll transition it over to you, Skylar. Do you have just top of head thoughts?
Yeah. So without a doubt, I kind of expected it as well. I was honestly a little bit disappointed that, at the end of May, they said it was going to be delayed till July. And now, it's months on top of that as well. And I'm just a little bit disappointed that Rivian didn't kind of better reset expectations when the first delay was announced. The other thing that struck me is, it was a good message, I thought, from RJ, but I really would have loved to see something more personal as a pre-order holder. And I would have loved to have seen and heard him say those things as opposed to reading it in an email.
Right.
Yeah. I think that that's true, because so much of, they say, communication is nonverbal. And, I sit there and think about, I wonder if he did, and I wonder if he just looked and it's like, man, it just, I give away too much disappointment, or I give away too much excitement. You know what I mean? It's like to try and hit the tone. And I think what you're saying, though, is well, we really don't want you to act one way. I just kind of want to see the actual nonverbal cues from RJ at this point. Is he stinking mad or is he discouraged, or is he encouraged? You do get a lot from the nonverbals because it's so much about the nonverbal communication is. Yeah.
Maybe he tried to do a video recording, but he couldn't stop crying.
That's what I was thinking too. I know. Following up on those two, I mean, as far as my own initial reaction, when we had Jazzy Jeff on here to talk about his call with the guide, they said October. That was my first time I thought, we're going to have another delay. He's one of the first people that has gotten contacted, and it's October. Right. And I'm like, what's that mean for July? And that was right after the July news came out. Because remember when that came out, it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and they said our first people will be contacted this week. And we all thought, whoa, there's 2 days left in this week. then Jazzy got contacted on that Friday and was told October. So to your point, Skylar, I wonder what happened between the July projection and the September. And I wonder if they had that went out and the next day something happened with a supply or with a bug or with something that broke, or you just gotta wonder, because it seems so. I know that they wouldn't have done that on purpose, because every delay gets a lot of attention, it gets a lot of talk, and I know that they purposely wouldn't have been like, oh, let's shoot for July and then push it back so quickly to September. And I know that as far as us getting on to here, we can talk about the causes. RJ does mention some of those causes. I know that everyone wants to mention the computer chip shortage, and that's fine. But why don't you guys just take a stab? Because we don't always just report news. We rarely do. We always just kind of speculate and give our opinion, right? So let's just kind of cut to the chase here. And can you guys just tell me any kind of wild guesses on what you really think is going on here? And do we believe this at face value, or is there more to it? What do you think?
I mean, I think for me, maybe the chips do have something, but I think the biggest thing is supply stuff, the supply chain.
Yeah.
Not just the one piece that the truck needs, or the however many chips are in this truck or in these vehicles, but there's multiple problems or issues that Rivian, and not just Rivian, every car company in the world right now is facing. I mean, this isn't just a Rivian problem. It's not just one thing; it's multiple. They're having multiple problems, just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. Supply chain for the vehicles themselves could be part of it, but then again, I mean, they've known how many pre-orders and how many launch editions, so for quite a while now, and I feel like it may not be all on the vehicle supply. It could be some of the manufacturing equipment or something along those lines, something that they need in order to produce the vehicles that may not even be a vehicle component.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going with that as well. I mean, it could be parts for robots or something that they need for the shipping or cargo containers, or however they're getting the trucks and the vehicles to the end user.
This might be where you were skating, Jimmy, and you wisely didn't go there. And so whether this makes the show or not, we will see. This might be edited out. But there was someone, a Rivian employee that works at the plant, that flat out posted in a forum, not our own, but in a forum that said, I'm on the floor and I can tell you that there's a problem, and he kind of mentioned a problem. Did he get shot down? Is that still up there? Do we want to talk about that or not? Yeah, go ahead.
One of the moderators did kill it, but I mean, not before it was screenshot and then the name or at least blurred out. That isn't actually where I was going, but I mean, I don't mind going there.
Yeah, but I mean, so he basically was more to Skylar's point that problem on a production line, and to get this component fixed on the production line is holding it up, and they're building battery packs by hand right now, and that's not going to be a way that they can scale to production. Something along those lines, right?
Oh yeah, and I mean that's basically where I was going. I mean, it's not just one. It's it's death by a thousand cuts. I mean, it's not just one. It's not just one problem that they have. It could be 1,000. We just don't know because they aren't giving us specifics. Which, I mean, I can't blame them.
Yeah.
I mean, the point I was going to go to, and I'll go there now since we're dancing around it, is people are canceling their reservation, hoping that they're going to get better luck with GM and Ford and the Lightning, and I don't see it happening. I mean, Ford's paused production how many times since we've started coming out of COVID? GM is killing features in trucks just to get trucks on the road. I don't want to. And I mean, could Rivian do that? I mean, they could kill more, or they could pull all the chips that they have. If it is just a chip, then they could pull all the chips from the Adventure and the Explorer editions just to make Launch Edition configurations whole. And then, but what does that do for them in the long run? It still creates more problems down the road.
So, and I was going to go towards that eventually. So, to kicking out over you, Skylar, you can react to any of that. But the topic that I do want to touch on that a lot of people are probably wondering is like, what does this mean for Rivian in terms of cancellations and just in the near term? What happens to reservation, to pre-order reservation numbers as far as how many do they lose? Does it really hurt Rivian or not? What are the implications? And do you want to respond to that, Skylar, along with anything else you have in your mind?
Sure. So I think that's definitely something that Rivian would like to avoid, just because when you're looking at it from a business or investor perspective, when you look at what may be considered churn in some industries, attrition or cancellation in others, that's not something that you want to see. And leading up to an IPO, that could be very negatively perceived.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one part of it. The other thing, and here's where I'm going to throw in some of my 2 cents. I really think that Rivian needs to take this as an opportunity to really embrace the pre-order community and try to hang on to as many as they can. I think better and a regular cadence of communication would go the furthest.
Mm-hmm.
And really, overall, I think from a long-term business perspective, cancellations aren't going to hurt Rivian. I think they've already got more pre-orders than they're going to be able to produce for probably 8 months to a year anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, losing some percentage of that won't be necessarily tremendously meaningful in the short term, other than potential impacts to the IPO.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned IPO, and I had just written down 10 seconds earlier, IPO timing. Like this delay, we've always heard the fall for the IPO as far as the past few months. And I'm like, I think that's delayed too then. I mean, I could just imagine them wanting to have deliveries done before that IPO just for the value of it. And then the only other thing we've thrown in there before just from some of our own texts is just the timing with competition, because all these announcements, to Jimmy's point, I don't really think that anyone's necessarily going to beat Rivian to the first truck on the market, first EV truck on the market, that is, because they all face the same challenges with supply chains. But they're all able to make announcements. And when all of a sudden all these announcements are made, I mean, I saw another GM truck announced yesterday as a third one, and then you've got the Lightning. And when the timing of this seems to be more competitive, that can certainly lead to some people jumping ship for something different or a different need or a little cheaper or whatever. To your point, Skylar, I don't think that really impacts Rivian's long-term strength and stability as a company. I just don't. Yeah. They've got so much going on with the vans, and I know we talked about that. That's another point. Well, the vans aren't delayed, and since one of my first videos, I remember some of the heat, oh yeah, good luck getting your truck or SUV because that's Bezos' company, and it's going to be all focused on the vans. And they're clearly working on it on the trucks and SUVs. I know that maybe we talked about, as far as this letter, just leave out the vans. Oh, we don't care about the vans right now. Who cares? Just talk about our R1s here.
Right.
But I think to kind of go back, my main thing was I don't fear for Rivian's strength as a company with what might amount to a few thousand cancellations, because people go towards a different option, which is now so much more attractive because of the similar timing, where some people before wanted to go with Rivian because it was going to be a year or two ahead of any other option. and it might be condensed now. Any kind of other thoughts right now? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in that issue, it's not necessarily that there is a competitive offering that people like better. I feel like a lot of people still want a Rivian, but they're forced just due to timing to do something else from a vehicle perspective now, or a carryover vehicle. And yeah, it may lead to short-term cancellations for customers that might get a Rivian later on, but it's the additional delays and the uncertainty around when pre-order holders will actually get their vehicles is forcing certain people to, take a backup plan as it relates to vehicles.
Totally. I'll kick it over to Jimmy because he can talk about his in-between car right now and how that also impacts, like, okay, well, if I get like a Chevy Bolt, or you've looked at Volt, you've looked at a lot of options to try and get through the fall, or now maybe I think you're thinking the next spring, who knows? And then there's all these other thoughts that start creeping in, like, wonder if I just should cancel this because then I could get a removable roof, or in my case with the R1S, a bigger, like the Max Pack, all those things. You start playing this what if game because you just spent money on an intermediate thing. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, I mean, I'll continue on your point with, thinking about canceling or changing my reservation to Adventure for 400 miles. I mean, the only problem with that logic, though, is, now because my timeline's pushed, I can get the Max Pack, but that timeline is really pushed.
Yeah.
And we have no idea when that's going to start at this point, because if they were going to start in July, the LEs are going to be done in June, the end of spring, June 21st.
Right.
And so where does that put us for Adventures, removable, Max Packs, removable roof, all these other features that are coming later down the road. But yeah, I mean, I know I'm not alone. Skylar, you did it with your Grand Cherokee. I did it with Nikki's Murano. I'm looking at finding a 2017 Bolt, because I mean, as much as I would love to find an 84 Honda, with low miles, I'm really enjoying this electric bit. It's a lot of fun. I don't like gas prices right now at $3 a gallon. I don't know what you guys are sitting at, but we're hovering around $3 a gallon right now. So I'm looking at Bolts just to so Nikki doesn't kill me.
Yeah.
I definitely wish that I would not have sold my Grand Cherokee. And especially now that the world's somewhat back open again after COVID, I'm driving around my big old heavy duty pickup truck. And shoot, by the time Kyle gets his R1S, his 2001 Tahoe may be old enough to legally drink.
I know, it's so true. You're saying you regret selling that. I'm like, well, I don't regret spending that $140 to fix my AC, because it's going to work. It's going to serve me all the way through the fall now, at least. So yeah, there's a lot there. Are there anything else that you guys are just kind of thinking about in this that you've heard people ask, that you've think that like maybe we need to represent some other voice out there? There's definitely going to be a handful of people that are frustrated. There's always going to be the haters, but who cares about regurgitating what the haters are saying? I mean, that's not even worth it. But there's a lot of Rivian fans and family who are committed and who aren't just blowing smoke, and who are more than curious. Like, they want this. And I guess I kind of wonder, like, the general tone to me is somewhat understanding and positive. I think it's a pretty positive bunch, and I think that, most of the group is probably like us, saw that coming. I wish that they would have like not said July and just said September from the beginning, for one. But so I think that something happened, and for two, I wish that they would communicate more. Those are the big things, and that's obviously reached RJ. He says in this here, if I go back to this, This bottom part down here, I've spoken with a number of you and know we need to do a better job at communicating specifics around deliveries. Our guides will continue reaching out. And then the tour is pushed back, of course, from this summer to September as well. You'll start seeing some stuff start to pop up and happen there. So those two things, as far as like not surprised and we need more communication, anything else that you guys want to highlight?
I chatted in, I think it was on Friday, and just I asked that question, like what's it like at the CEC right now? Like what kind of comms are you getting from us as pre-order holders? And I actually got a response I was kind of expecting, but I figured there would be a smattering of hate and discontent. And from what he said, it was very, very positive. There was still a lot of excitement, obviously, and just a lot of encouragement from those that did chat in. So, I mean, that was cool to hear that we're not just completely bad mouthing Rivian at this point to the CEC, considering those individuals who are awesome have nothing to do with this. I mean, they're only telling us what they're told they can tell us.
Yeah.
And you know what? With that in mind, I think that the customer service and guide teams deserve a shout out for having to deal with, all of us eager and sometimes frustrated pre-order holders out there. They really do work hard. I'm so proud of them for eliminating soon from the vocabulary. Like that is so awesome. So anyway, keep up the good work, guys.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. If you get a chance, please check us out at rivianstories.com. And every like, subscribe, and share helps. Thanks again.